This is Chad, and I'm here with my brother Cory, and welcome to the Grand Old Time Codcast, and we're about to have a grand old time. All right. Well, Cory, you know how we do this. Let's get this started off. Go ahead. Like I said, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Just the general, what goes on in your life, little zeitgeist about you. Go ahead.
Well, did you practice that read in there
I
very
sure
long?
did. I sure
I
did.
bet you did. So, I guess I was born here. Actually, I was born in Tulsa, in St. Francis Hospital. So, all the best people in the world are born there. So, it's just how it is. Pays to be great. So,
Is that right?
but no, I was raised in Owasso. Went to the Owasso public schools. Lived in a neighborhood for a long time, but Studo grew up on a farm too. We'd always go up to grandma and grandpa's, and they lived up on the farm, and we'd go help them with the. We'd see the horses and the cows and help them feed and do stuff like that. So been a country boy. I would say more of a country boy than a city person, but then we moved out to Skytook when we turned into our teen years, but we're still able to go to Owasso schools because we had an Owasso address at the time still. So the only thing was it was kind of hard to keep friend groups because we didn't really get to stay in town, so it's hard to keep in touch. Like we weren't those kids who could just run next door. Like when we lived in the neighborhood early on, we could just go next door and play with the neighbor kids and things like that. But when we moved out to the lake, we were so far away; it was hard to stay with a congruent friend group, especially when you go to the centers. Like elementary school, it's easy because you're with that same group of kids. Then you go to the centers, like sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, and you're just divvied up a bunch of kids that you have to make new friends essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I enjoyed being out the lake. Being out the lake, we learned hard work. We learned that life ain't always easy, and
Yeah.
got to roll your sleeves up and do some
Yeah.
tough stuff you don't want to do out there.
Agreed. It said being a kid and growing up that you had to dig your own trench for water. There's remember that when we had to
Mm-hmm.
do that back then, and then literally going like weeks without water or power sometimes because Skytook would just randomly like lose stuff. At least where we lived,
Yeah,
anyway.
lose power and whatnot. But yeah, no. So learned how to be tough. Learned how to deal with tough things in life out there and not having everything you'd want to have. Then in high school, I didn't. I joined the football team. I really didn't play sport. I played sports as a kid. Played basketball. Then I was. I knew I wasn't going to be a very good basketball player, so I was like, I'd like to do football. That looks like a fun sport to me. So I joined, not knowing anything about the sport, and just went in and started playing. And I had a really good time playing football. And being in sports, you want to do well, you want to succeed, and we had basically resigned ourselves to join the military so we could stay active and do something interesting after high school. But we let our dad convince us to go to college for a couple years and try it out. He said he'd help us pay for college, so that was his problem, not mine at that point. So he convinced us, and we went to college. Went to the University of Tulsa for film, and really liked that. Like joined a fraternity. That was a lot of fun. Being in college was a lot of fun. I wish I had if I could go back and do it again, I probably would have done military first. That way, you could just had military pay for the college and whatnot. But for the most part, I'd say it was still a really good experience. I don't regret going to college by any stretch of mind. But if I could go back and reorganize things, I definitely probably would have done military first, just because the older you are, the harder it is. But I'm not saying it's that hard right now either. Like I survived basic training just fine, so here we are, still alive, and survived OCS too. So, or survived phase one at least. So, with that being said, though, college was fun. Film school was fun. Learning how to do film was a lot of fun because it's a hands-on
Yes.
school. It's not like the worst classes were the theory classes. Like, oh, we're gonna learn film theory, and I'm like, ugh. It's like, oh, let's learn the history. Like, and look, learning the history of stuff is neat, but like I said, hands-on, getting your hands on the equipment and
Yes.
writing a story and filming it and getting actors and working with a large group of people, it's a lot of fun.
Experience is always the best teacher.
Yes, absolutely. So I enjoyed it. Uh, I enjoyed being in a fraternity. I enjoyed college in general. But like I said, again, I think I enjoyed it a little too much. I wish I had weaponized and been a little bit more aggressive with how I spent my time instead of, having too much free time on my hands. I feel like probably had a little too much free time in my schedule looking back on it. So, with that being said, though, after college, we started working for our old man doing selling insurance, and it's not bad. It pays the bills. You can make good money in sales, but the soul kind of dies in an office setting, is what I'd say. It's you just don't feel
Fulfilled.
it doesn't. Yeah, yeah. I don't feel fulfilled doing it. Maybe if I was making like $1 million a year, it would feel a little more fulfilling. But uh, it just it leaves a lot to be desired. So what we did before the military came and calling, we put together. We wrote and directed a feature length film, and that was a lot of work. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was 3 months of writing something that we both agreed on seemed good enough to kind of put out. Had peers from my college that I trusted be like, "Hey, read the script. What do you guys think?" And whether or not they were being 100% honest, they were like, "It's paced very well. It's a well structured story." And I was like, "I agree too." So went out and put out, getting actors and stuff hired, paying for like most of them did it pro bono. Like I paid for a couple of tanks of gas and stuff for the actors, but the majority of them did it pro bono. And it was tough. It was like 3-4 months of filming, and then it was like 3 or 4 months of post production. The only thing I would say I regret about it is we didn't do a good enough job on audio.
Audio.
Yeah, so we were newbies to the audio stuff, and I hate ADR. I hate how it sounds, how ADR sounds, and how it doesn't match up just right sometimes. So, but I should have retrospectively just gone back and done that anyway. But I hate how it looks. I love it when you can tell that the actors are actually talking. So. With that being said, though, the film turned out okay. Like I said, just the audio wasn't great, and we didn't get picked up or traction on any real film festivals. So that was kind of a bummer, but I still think it turned out pretty well as far as it could have looked way worse.
Just say I've seen movies that have made it to video and stuff that have been a lot worse.
Yeah, so I would say that it was a fun experience too. Like it was challenging and hardworking and fun. You just learn how to do it yourself. Nobody's going to help you do it. So I've got that grit in us, or we've got that grit, but it's a difficult thing to do because trying to work with, I mean, we only had like 4 actors, but working around their schedules and their lives, and because not all of them were actual working actors, some of them they had other jobs to do, and so that's a tough thing. Learning how to do my own work full time, be able to take time off to go shoot the films and pick up shots and reshoot scenes that just didn't turn out the way you want them. It's a difficult process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of fun too. It's very challenging. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. But again, didn't get a lot of traction at film festivals or anything like that. So I just kind of went back into work and kind of resigned ourselves to doing insurance a little bit more. And again, you slowly start to wither inside when you do office work. And so felt the call and like, hey, let's do military. Let's join up. And we decided to do the Air Force. So we were gonna do. We went. Chad and I both wanted to do TAC P. That sounded like a fun job, and for whatever reason, he didn't have bad depth perception, and I did. So I got disqualified medically for depth perception, which I still not 100% sure why that's the issue or like how that affects me reading a map or something along those lines. But they and I went out and I tried getting glasses and kept going back to the MEPS facility and getting my eyes retested, and the glasses made it worse, and so I just couldn't do it. So they were like, you have to do PJ. You're medically qualified for PJ, but you have to go and do these things called pass tests. They won't in the Air Force. They won't let you join the special operations unless you've already proven that you can do the
bare minimum.
The bare minimum of the standards that they want. And I say bare minimum, like the standards are tough. Like the like it's a 9-minute mile and a half, so it's not hard, but it ain't easy either. And we just weren't training properly, and most importantly, we weren't dieting properly at the time because we passed the first one, and then we couldn't pass anymore after that because our run times just kept getting worse and worse and worse because we weren't dieting properly and we weren't doing the right kind of training we needed to be doing at that time. But then COVID hit right about the time we would have been shipping out or continuing doing pass tests, and what ended up happening there was we just ran out of eligibility. When you get a contract or you get qualified, you're what they call depped in, and if you let your contract expire, then you don't ever officially sign it or along those lines. Then you run out of eligibility. They have to medically test you again. And when COVID hit, we ran out of eligibility, and we just waited and waited to see if the military was going to do, if they're going to force you to take vaccinations and stuff. And we just kept waiting and waiting. And then the National Guard said they weren't going to make you do vaccinations. So we were like, cool. So we said, hey, the National Guard might be for us then. That way we can still serve, but still kind of be close to home too, and be around family and friends. So seemed like the best option at the time, and that's what we did. So we met with some recruiters who really, like I said, enlisted recruiters. They really didn't know. They actually helped us figure it out, though. They're like, yeah, if you want to do the officer route, this is the way to go. But they tried to get us to do enlisted and then officer. But what we ended up doing was we just went with an '09 Sierra contract, which is just specifically the officer contract. So we go, instead of going to like infantry and doing 22 weeks of infantry school, we went and we just do basic training for 10 weeks at Fort Jackson. And then we come back and we start in the pre-OCS environment here in the state of Oklahoma, which I was like, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we ended up doing. But Chad and I, since we worked at the office, we had to split our times when we went. So Chad said, I'll go first, and I'll go to basic from September to December. And then when he gets back, he can take over at the office, and I'll go from January to March. And while Chad was away from September to December, I stayed here in Oklahoma, and I'd go to the RSP weekends. And the RSP weekends, they're good. You know, as boring as they are, they you can learn a lot of good information there. So they'll teach you how to march. They'll teach you how to do about face, right face. You know, you'll learn customs and courtesies, and they'll teach you quite a bit. So you aren't green when you go. You have a lot of working knowledge of how everything works. Now you can learn it all at basic training too. It's not super difficult, but it's always good to, like, you feel ahead of the curve because of the RSP.
Yes.
So that they do good work there, and they have great instructors and drill sergeants and just cadre in general over there that get those kids, because like it's really mainly for young kids. You know, it's for 17-year-old kids who are able to do high school and college or high school and go to that. But there were other people there. There were people that were like in their 20s and stuff as well, who were just waiting to go to basic to go do what they want to do and go to their units. So I went there until December. And then finally, January rolls around and I ship out. And I go to actually, we go the same place that you shipped out from in Oklahoma City. And you basically gave a brief to all the kids there. It's like, these are the things you should bring and will want to bring. And
Which, if anything, if anybody wants to take any advice from that, it's literally a cell phone charger and wet ones, because they ran out of toilet paper at some of the bathrooms several times.
Mm-hmm.
So bring your own bring your own wet ones that are flushable.
Yeah.
And then a portable battery charger.
Yeah.
Because everybody fights over the
chargers.
or the plugins for the chargers.
Yeah.
At
Bring
the
one
base.
that holds a charge, and make sure that phone is off and in power
Yes.
save mode whenever you have it, because the more life you can squeeze out of it. Because some places they'll let you have it, other places they won't. But we got it at our company. So anyway, you give a brief and you tell people what they should and shouldn't bring, and whether or not it was too late for them at that point is kind of up in the air. But unlike whenever you went, there was like 6 kids there whenever you went, and there were like 30 kids there whenever I was
Correct.
there.
But at least from Oklahoma, anyway.
Yeah. Now, a lot of them went to other places. Like some of them went to Fort Sill. Some of them went to, Fort Moore now, but it's Fort Benning. So, but a lot of them, the majority of them went with me to Fort Jackson. And I was like, well, I'll get on this plane and I'll never see most of these kids again. But that was not the case. And most of those kids from Oklahoma and the National Guard, I mean, they were in my company and platoon. I was like, I figured once we got there, I'd be like, well, this will be the last time we see each other. Bye, everybody. And that did not ever happen. They kind of stuck around with me the entire time, which was kind of crazy.
Because that did not happen to me.
Yeah. So we get on the plane, and unlike you, so we get on the plane, we go to Atlanta, and then we get on a bus from Atlanta to South Carolina. Like, we bussed like 4 hours there, and it was a long drive. I mean, but that's why I told everybody who was on the bus, I was like, guys, when we get there, they're not going to let us sleep for the first day, so just sleep as much as you can on this bus. You know, a lot of kids, didn't believe me, but I was like, you trust me, sleep while you can, because this will be the last chance we'll get in the next 24 hours at least.
Yep.
Or almost 48 hours at that point. But
yep. Nap on the plane, nap on the bus, because that first day there, you're going to be up at least till about 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh,
guaranteed.
We were up all night. We didn't get to sleep. Like, we sat us in that little church room, and we sat up there all night, and then we didn't get to go to sleep until the following day. It was a long one.
I believe that.
Yeah, so we get to reception, and we go. The first thing you do is like eat your camel packs and they start issuing you what little gear they like a laundry bag, and they issue what little gear they can give you, and then you start getting your other stuff you can get fitted for your clothes. But then you do a medical screening again. Like you go to MEPS before you go, and you get your clearance to go to, right, and to Army basic training, and then you get to reception, and you do the exact same medical screenings. And they tested my hearing, they tested my sight, they shoot you up with shots. It was ridiculous.
Just protocol, making sure nobody beat the system at their MEPS facilities.
Yeah. And it was crazy. But that sucked. Being at MEPS sucked. Like you get up and like finally when we were so happy to get to the bays where we could actually sleep after like 48 hours of being awake all day. And they're yelling at kids who are falling asleep when we're just sitting there in this hotel room, or not this church sermon room essentially. Mm-hmm. And, yelling at kids for passing out. It's like, we've been up for 48 hours. What do you want from us? And so finally we get to go to those rooms. And, man, those rooms, they had no air conditioning. They had air conditioning, but they didn't use them. It was like 89, almost 90 degrees in there. But it was wintertime, too. But, man, it sucked. Like, you get in there just sweating, trying to go to sleep. And then you wake up at 4 in the morning and stand out in formation. And that's what you did. You just stood everywhere and like my feet were killing me. Like the worst part was my feet were just were dead before we even made it to basic training, or our drill sergeants. Like my feet hurt so bad I just want to sit down, because you'd just be standing in line going to the chow hall, and that's all you did. Just basically you'd march to the chow hall and you march back every day, but then you would be taken around to do your medical screenings or things like that to finish up reception. We were there for a whole week, unlike Chad, who was there for 3 days like a piece of crap. Lucky. They were trying to get us out of there a day in advance, but then like they just came out and they're like, yeah, it's not going to happen. We were just like, But I did learn whenever we were this was preliminary knowledge, not for sure, but one of the people there was like, yeah, this is this group here, and they were kind of pointing out, these guys will be going to Bravo 439. And I was like, that's the exact same company that my brother was just at. Like, that's a heck of a coincidence. But it was just like the video lady who said that. Like, she's not affiliated with the Army. She's just like she's a contractor. Sales contractor that sells, Army videos and stuff. But she was like, yeah, your group's going to 439. And I was like, are you 100%? And like, and a lot of people, there's also like, don't listen to her. She's not like actually like official or anything, but she was correct. We ended up going. That's where like we were loading up and getting on the bus, and I was put in first platoon, and we were loading up. And so they drive up in LMTV, which is a big truck with a canopy over it, and you throw all your bags into it. So we're throwing all of our bags in. And the drill sergeants who drive it are obviously from our company, like they're from where our drill sergeants are, because obviously this LMTV belongs to our company. So I get out, and there's one drill sergeant standing there, and he's just eyeballing me. He's just straight staring at me, and I was just like, I don't feel like he's staring at me. I think he's just looking at his new batch of recruits that he's got, But I mean, and this guy could just be a driver for all I know, and not like affiliated with the company. But I just get the feeling he's just staring me down personally. I don't know this guy from Adam, but I'm sitting there like in the back of my head, I go, this might be one of Chad's drill sergeants, and he probably recognizes me or thinks I'm Chad, or maybe it's like one of the ones that was his favorites, and like they know exactly who I am. And I was correct. Like, he knew exactly who I was. He didn't say anything, but because he was so bewildered when he was looking at me, but he was looking directly at me, and not because I asked him about it later. But so we load up and we get on these buses. They're going, put your head down, don't look up, and you get there and you arrive at
your company.
At the company, and we get out there at Bravo, and we're over there by where the dumpster is where the bus stops. Where all the buses stop. Yep. When they're picking you up from church and whatnot, but. They stop over there, and our drill sergeant hops in and goes, get off this bus. And I'm the last person out there, like, never be the last. But I was like, I was the last person in the bus. Like, I mean, there's no other way for me to, like, I was the last man, So I was like, I was worried about that, but it wasn't really an issue. So we go and we do all that, like they running you around doing the phases and stuff. And as we're running around doing this stuff, the first drill sergeant that says anything to me is when we're doing the phase run stuff. So like we go up and I'm carrying this dang, what do you call it? What do you call the medical? The stretcher.
Stretcher, yeah.
I'm carrying the stretcher, and they're like, yeah, everybody carries something. So somebody's carrying a gallon, a 4-gallon jug of gas, and
Ammo
stuff. And
crates,
I'm
all sorts
carrying
of stuff.
the litter, the Aiden litter kit, and I'm running up there, and then I'm running back down with it. I'm still carrying this stuff, and I'm just like, is anybody else gonna trade me? Because like we were running as a group, and then the group just left and ran to the Omaha fire lane or whatever, and I was like, somebody come back here and trade me out. I'm sick of carrying this thing. Like I got two girls who are like can barely keep up with me, and I'm carrying two instead of like it's supposed to be one person on each side, and I'm carrying the
Yeah.
two. I was like, somebody come relieve me for God's sakes. We're carrying the weight of a human body, and I got two girls who can't keep up with me. And I was getting tired too. My arms were sagging and hanging, and I was just like, "Hey, I need some strong guys to come back over here and help me, like from first platoon." But nobody can hear me. Nobody's listening. You know who is listening is Drill Sergeant Johnson. He goes, "Hey, there are strong females too, Watson." And we're not wearing anything that like indicates who we are. I don't have a name patch on.
Nope.
I'm wearing PT gear, so I don't have my name on my camelback or anything. But Drill Sergeant Johnson's like, I know exactly. Like he was like, I know exactly who you are. I was like, oh, this is not good. So he's like, there are strong females too, Watson. And I was like, oh, and I was like, yes, Drill Sergeant. So we get over there, and then after we've done all the what your training will look like in the span of a couple of minutes, we're getting all of our bags put together and like, find your bag, and then your favorite Drill Sergeant Ramirez, comes up to. So I'm looking for my bag. I cannot find my duffel bags to save my life. Like I've labeled the crap out of it too. I don't know where it is. Like I'm running around from platoon to platoon looking for like where they dumped my bag, and like just I'm just lost. And then this one drill sergeant just walks up to me and goes, "Hey," he's like, and I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And he's like, "You have a twin brother that used to go here?" And I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And he's like, "I effing thought so." And he's like, "Get back to work." And I was just like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And I was just like, and that's the way it was. Like every single, there were a couple of new drill sergeants there who had no clue, but that's how it was with most of them. Like, so I'd be sitting there, and as we're running around doing all this stuff, unloading bags, uh, they would just drill sergeants would just walk up to me, and then at one point, somebody yells my name, and I am called to the front of the CTA. So like everybody's in the formation in the platoon, and as I'm running, like the first sergeant goes, "There, trainee Watson." Now I'm not the only Watson. There's another guy in 4th platoon called Watson too, but they go, "Watson, who had a twin brother here last cycle," and I was like, "Oh, that is not good." So this is the first sergeant. Like you do not interact with the first sergeant. Like that's like unheard of. But first sergeant comes running up, and he's like, and he goes, "First sergeant wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh, it's not good." So I run up, and I'm like, "Yes, drill sergeant." And of course, I get yelled at. "He's not a drill sergeant. He's the first sergeant of the company." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Cool." So he's got there, and then all of a sudden, here comes Drill Sergeant Musgrove, and he goes, "Your brother was here last cycle." And I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." He goes, "Your brother was an excellent trainee." And I was just like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And
Did you hear that? He was an excellent.
he said he was an excellent trainee. That is his words verbatim. I remember it like it was yesterday. But of course, I go up there, and the first sergeant's like, "Hey, your brother was here last cycle, wasn't he?" And I was like, "Yes, first sergeant." As I'm trying to fix it, and he's like, "Well, you're gonna do," and it's so loud in the CTA because there's so many drill sergeants yelling. There's so much going on. I could not hear what he said. "You're gonna do this many push-ups," and I didn't know what number he said. And I was like, I thought I heard him say like. He might have just said 39, but I was like, "Did you say do 139 push-ups, first sergeant?" He was like, "Nope, that's how many you're going to do now." And I was just like, oh, man. So I get down there, and I rep out like 70 push-ups without a break, and then I'm like, I got to, I get in the front lane, the rest kind of drop to my knees and take a break for a minute, and then I pound out like 20 more, and then I pound out like 20 until I get to that 139 number, and oh, that was not fun, but I did it, there were other people running around doing stuff, and I was catching my breath because it was a lot to do in a short amount of time. It was hot out that day. Like, even though it was winter, like it was wonderful weather the whole time we were there. Like it was gorgeous.
It was the same for me when I was there from September to December. We only had like we probably had like a week's worth of like super cold days. You'd be like, God, I hate it. But the rest of it was actually really good.
It was. Fort Jackson just has when I was there, it was just a wonderful weather. And I mean, it was hot the day we arrived to Bravo, hot. Like, so I was out of breath, because we'd already been running around doing stuff, and I just did 139 push-ups. And I was like, "I'm done." And I was like, so I get ready to take off to run, catch up with my platoon. He goes, "No, you're going to stand there. You're going to take a break, catch your breath, and then I'm gonna let you go when I feel better about it. That's how you know, like, they actually care. You know, like
Yeah.
like he's not gonna be like, this guy's totally dead right now. I'm not gonna let him go and kill himself trying to catch up with the platoon. So, I knew that I was in good hands at that point. It was I was like, so, and I was like, I must be living in the good graces of Chad's reputation here as well. So, again, like, all the drill sergeants are actively aware now that I am there, that they have somebody that all of them know or have problems. So, and then they would come up to me, did your brother tell you this? Did your brother tell you that? And I'd be like, he sure did, drill sergeant. And I'm like, and so that was interesting. It was, like I said, again, a unique, once in a lifetime experience that I realize, well, I was very fortunate to have, give or take. It's like, also being well known is not a good thing, but like I said, in my case, it wasn't a bad thing because, I lived in your good grace, the wake of your good graces there. So,
And you remember that.
I do remember that. It was a very cool experience for sure. I really enjoyed my time at Bravo, and I had a rapport with the drill sergeants that no other trainee would have. So when you're a twin, like, sometimes, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I met one of my best friends because of Chad, and Chad was in class with a guy, and it was one of my best friends' name is Drake, and Chad had a class with him, and so when you're a twin, you don't always tell people you're a twin, because it's just like, I don't need to tell everybody I'm a
It's not
twin.
the first thing that rolls up in
Especially if
conversation.
and it was a new kid. He was a new kid in school as well. So it's like not the first thing you talk about. It's like, I've got a life, got things going on. I don't just go up to everybody, I'm a twin, everybody, look at me. You just, like, you're a weirdo. Like, get out of my face. Like, I don't want to talk to you. So I'm at school, in high school, and, like, this random kid comes up to me in the hallway and goes, hey, man, what are we doing in Duffy's class today? And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't have Duffy as a teacher. I can't help you. And then, like, he's like, no, man, you quit playing around. What are we doing in Duffy's class today? And I was like, you must be talking about my twin brother. Like, I don't have Duffield as a teacher. Like, you're talking about Chad. Like, I'm not in Duffy's class. I've never met you, but, go find Chad. He'll probably be closer to your class. And he just looked at me. He just gave me, like, this look, like, why is this guy being a jerk right now? And I go away, and then eventually he walks up to you and he goes, I don't even know. He just goes, hey, do you have a twin brother? And you're like, yeah, I do. Did you meet him or something? And you're like, yeah, I was asking what we were doing in class today. And, like, again, that's how I've met a lot of my really good friends, just because, just serendipitously. It's like, I didn't realize you were a twin. And it's like, oh, yeah. So I'll have to have conversations with people who I don't know who they are, but they're just assuming I'm Chad. So it's always fun to do, though, because you just sit there. It's like, I have an idea of what's going on, but that's the way it was being at Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
So all these drill sergeants, like, they don't make that distinction because when you have a twin brother or identical twin brother, like, sometimes they just don't make that separation. So I'll walk in there and they'll be like, oh, yeah, you're not Chad. Yeah, they'll be telling a story, but it's like, I know what you're talking about, though, because he told me this story. And they're all like, okay, so you're already on the same page. I'm like, yes, drill sergeant. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, that's also part of the situation too, because sometimes the drill sergeants aren't at the location where something has happened, so they're getting it secondhand from another drill sergeant.
Yeah.
So you basically are, like, in the same situation
Yeah.
that most of them are in.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and all the drill sergeants have the same collective knowledge of what happened the last cycle. So and that was the thing, like, in my platoon, I'd tell everybody, guys, this is what's going to happen next, because I had your schedule and what happened day by day basically memorized.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you'd be shocked how people just don't believe you. It's like, and then they'd come up to me later and be like, well, that happened exactly the way you said it was going to happen. I'd be like, yep, I told you. I don't know why you guys keep fighting me on this. Like, just believe me when I say I know what's coming next.
Yeah, you have the playbook.
I have the playbook.
Said my little diary or notes letters that I sent home to you are basically the play-by-play of what's going to happen, besides, like, a small tweak here or there.
But yeah, I mean, when I showed up to Bravo, it was like, I don't know if you've ever played sports, but it's like if you're the younger brother of somebody who played and just graduated. Like, you come up as a freshman and they just graduated as a senior. It's like, oh, look, it's so-and-so's little brother. That's kind of how it felt. It was like a junior varsity kid going up to the varsity team whose brother was already there. So that's what was interesting about it. Now, again, I had very interesting conversations and stuff with the drill sergeants because I had that prior knowledge. So I knew Drill Sergeant V pretty well. And one time we had to get ice because you have to make ice for heat catting. You have to make ice buckets for heat cats and stuff. Well, heat cat is a heat casualty. So I'm over there and we're getting ice out of the ice chest over there by the defact. And I'm like the last person in line, and there's like no reason to grab any more ice. So like I'm standing there with her, and she's trying to like lock this gate, and she can't do it. And I was just like, and she's like, Watson, I know I'm not stupid, but I cannot get this thing to work, so I'm gonna make you do it. And so I get up there and I go, and I'm trying to lock, and I get it to lock, and I close it, and I get it, and I hand the key back to her, and I just look at her because she's just like silent because I made it look easy, you know. I was like, it stays between us, drill sergeant. And she was like, she laughed and was like, I bet it will, trainee. And I was like, yep. And then I'll be able to like probe her about what happened last night. But hey, what was it like doing this? How did trainee? She was like, oh, your brother tell you about trainee that's run away? Yeah. And like I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, how did he get in without being medical trained? She was like, she'd be like, he must have had a heck of a recruiter. So I would get to have these conversations with them, like really just present of prior knowledge, and they enjoyed it too because they don't often get to have conversations with people about what happened in a prior cycle.
Yep.
It just doesn't work that way. You're just talking to kids you are just trying to train for.
That's what I told you. Is like I said, you had a very interesting relationship with drill sergeants that no other trainee in like a lifetime has probably ever had.
Yes.
Unless, of course, there's a situation where it's like, oh, I personally know your brother. I served with your brother or, father or some situation like that.
And that's even rarer than what, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's probably about the same amount of rare. But, yeah, it was just interesting because I would have conversations with Drill Sergeant Musgrove. Like, hey, well, remember that trainee that you throw down like 6 times at the Omaha? And he'd be like, yeah, your brother told you about that? I was like, yeah. And I was like, and he'd just like, yeah, here's the thing about that trainee. And I would just get to listen to their perspective on the event instead of hearing it from your perspective.
Because everyone's perspective of a situation is completely different.
It's amazing how radically different their perspective was on certain scenarios. And like I said, again, I could talk about I was talking to Drill Sergeant Johnson and Drill Sergeant Ramirez
about that same
and I'm like, they gave and I got to watch them go head to head about why one of them was like, oh, I think he's a good person. The other one was like, no, I don't like him. I'll never want to serve with him anywhere. And like I was like, this is awesome. I get to see this. And like the other candidates or trainees are like, I have no idea what's going on. But I'm sitting there laughing.
As for always, I will defend Drill Sergeant Ram because he was actually in his platoon. Like I said, your drill sergeant just came in to like give him like little pep talks. Yeah, he was
looking at it from like the outside perspective,
Yeah, so he was giving him like he'd come in and give that kid some pep talk to try to cheer him up and stuff. Whereas Drill Sergeant Ramirez was like, do you understand what I'm telling you? And he'd be like, yes, I understand. And all of a sudden he's like, you clearly do not because you just did exactly what I told you not to do.
Yes, exactly. So that was like basically verbatim the conversation that they had. So it was interesting to see these clash of personalities come over a shared thing that I could have with them. Be like, oh yeah, tell me about your perspective, and then Ramirez would come in with his hardcore perspective, like I can't stand the kid, it's like, and then John's like, oh, you guys just don't get it, and he's like, no, and Ram's like, no, you don't get it.
So, I would always trust a person who has more time with said individual than someone who's just like outside.
Absolutely. But I'll kind of go in and like tell a story that you had kind of talked about, like the serious one. And and what I'll say about that is you have to know your role. And me, like, I could try to like be the the officer candidate kind of guy that comes in and is like, I'm going to lead these kids to, but that's just not me. I'm a comedian.
I would forewarn you against that.
Oh yeah.
We had people who tried to do that in mind. Just like, it does not.
Oh
go
yeah. They get
well.
booed. Yeah. I know. So I'm a jokester. I'm a comedian. So I like try to keep things light. I try to take people's minds off of things. So one time we came back from like doing something. It was like a long march or something. Maybe it's like after the forge or not after the forge. After like the hammer, like the first field excursion, the overnight field excursion. And we come back and the bay's pretty trash. Like there's wet sandbags strung out in the middle of the bay. Like, and for the most part, it's really not trash that bad. But to these young kids, like this is the worst. They're like, why would they do this to us? Like this is crazy. Like we're already all tired. We just want to go put our stuff in our locker and go to bed. It's like, And I just remember listening to like all these kids complaining. I just go, guys, I was in a fraternity. It's like, and they're like, what does this have to do with anything? But I'm like, when I was in my fraternity, I had to clean like, of course you always go overboard. It's like,
Exaggerate,
yeah. So I was
exaggerate.
like, we had to clean a 3-story mansion, and all these basically beer drinking frat boys destroyed the house, and we had to clean the whole thing up. Why? Because a bunch of drunk guys said I had to. And I was like, and I only had a pledge class of like, well, we had like what we had 4, but we had like 5 guys, and I was like, I think I was like, we had 5 guys in my pledge class. I had to clean this 3-story mansion. It took us like 6 hours to do it in one night. And like they're like, wow, really? And I was like, and this is not that bad. Like we are all working together. There's like 49 of us in this bay. We can all help, use our hands if we have to, because we don't have enough cleaning utilities for all of us to use, or utensils.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, and then after we get it presentable, then we can have fire guard polish this turd. Why we go to bed. And like that changed the dynamic, because everyone's like, oh wow, like maybe it's not that bad. Listen to Watson's story. It's like, exactly. And then the conversation moved to a direction I wasn't expecting to. They were talking about secret societies and stuff. So while we're cleaning, we're talking about secret societies, and organizations and stuff like that, instead of me having to prep them and be like, guys, I had it way worse in my fraternity, which really I didn't. But I was trying
Yeah.
to like make it clear that it could be worse.
100%.
And that was the role I filled. I was like, guys, nothing's as bad as it seems, and that was what I did to try to keep morale up. And I did that multiple times. Like another time I did something similar was we had one drill sergeant, and kind of like you, like we didn't get along a whole lot, or she was the one that everyone just kind of disliked. And I remember she said something along like this, bet you guys missed your sodies and your pizza. And I was like, and I just sat there and quiet for a second. I was like, sure do miss sodies, drill sergeant. She was like, shut the F up, and dropped me right there. And then I was in the friendliness. But one time, again, that same drill sergeant, we were outside, and it was cold that morning, and we all had our gloves on, except of course one person forgot their gloves. So we're just like, just see if we can get away with it, and of course we don't get to get away because she sees one person doesn't have their gloves, so we all got to take gloves off. So and then she drops us, and she goes, on my command, when I say down, you say it's too dang, and it's really effing, and then on up you say cold. So it's like, so down
It's
it's like, it's
really.
really effing cold.
Yeah.
It's really effing cold, And then she was like, so we're all doing these push-ups, and I was like, it's really effing cold. And finally she goes, halfway down, and I go, it's kinda. But that was just me by myself, and she goes, everybody else get up, Watson stay down. And I was just like, that was like what I would do to like raise morale, like, so everybody else is up and I'm still down here in the half front leaning rest position, and she'd be like, halfway up, and then I go up, and I'd be like, cold, and then she go halfway down again. I say, it's kinda. So I just try to keep morale up by being a practical jokester kind of thing. Of course I got punished for it,
Yeah.
but that was, yeah, like I said, again, that's how I kind of fit into my dynamic with
Of
the
the
with the
group.
platoon
Yep.
and the group. So might as well just have fun while we're there, and that's what I try to do. I tried to just like, hey guys, it's gonna suck, so we might as well try to make it fun. So
True.
that's
And that person in the group does help with the morale.
It does, yeah. And there are times you got to learn when to be quiet, but for the most part, at basic training, that was never really an issue. I knew when to be quiet and when to try to raise morale. So
100%.
again, it's fun. It's fun doing stuff like that and being that guy for people. So I would say a couple of Ram stories, a couple of Drill Sergeant Ramirez stories that are good is I kind of continued on the hitchhiking legacy that you did. So. Yeah, if you see Chad's video about this, he one time asked to hitchhike when Drill Sergeant Ramirez was driving the truck because he was in a boot, and he's watching, making sure there are no fallouts, and Chad was like, give me a ride, or he didn't say it, but he just gave him the hitchhiker's thumb, like, hey, pick me up, drive me, and the Drill Sergeant just flipped him off, and and that's what I did every single time we stepped off and Drill Sergeant Ramirez was driving the vehicle. I did that every single time I hitchhiked him, and he flipped me off every single time.
Yep.
Fun. It is funny. And Ram was funny. Like it got to the point where I would just go up to him and I would just say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to him. And you have to go to at ease. So attention and then at ease. before you address a drill sergeant. So I'd just go up to him, I'd go to attention, then I'd ease, and I'd be like, drill sergeant. And he'd be like, what? And I'd just be like, good morning, drill sergeant. And he would just shake his head and continue on because I'd stop him every time I saw him. Didn't matter what it was. And eventually it got to the point where he was kind of having like a semi-serious conversation because we actually didn't get to go to church one Sunday because the buses just never showed up to pick us up. So a lot of people were really bummed out. So I could tell like this conversation's coming to a close. So everybody's asking him questions like, drill sergeant, what about this and that? And it's all church related. And then I'm like, okay, we're done. Like, I can tell that was the last question. So I just go, drill sergeant. And he just looks at me and he goes, what? And I go, good evening, drill sergeant. And he just goes, if you ever talk to me again, you're going to have to do 25 push-ups to speak to me. And I did that happily every time, anywhere, wherever he was. Like, I'd be like, drill sergeant. He'd be like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'd be like, good morning, drill sergeant. And he'd be like, drop. And then at night, before we go to bed, every night, if he was the one coming in to like make sure they're closing up, like we'd always say, "Good night, drill sergeant." Like that's you'd be at the towing the line, standing around the kill zone in the bay.
Yep.
And we're all towing the line, and he'd come in and be like, "All right, good night, trainees," and we'd leave and like, "Good night, drill sergeant. We love you." And I would say that. I'd say, "Good night, drill sergeant. I love you." And then he would walk out, and the door would close. And then I would walk to my locker. And my locker is like right next to the door. So like that door would always pop right back open right as I got to my locker. And he'd just look in and he'd just do this. He'd be like, indicating I need to do 25 more push-ups before I went to bed. So, and that was like nightly ritual if he was the drill sergeant putting us to sleep. And it was fun. I had a good time doing it because it was just, people would be like, why do you do that, Watson? I'm like, because it's fun. And I'm making my own memories and having a good time at basic training. And I'm making it it's more annoying to him at this point than it is to me.
Correct.
So I'm holding him I might have to do these 25 push-ups, but I'm holding him hostage by doing them.
Yep. So I do have one more that was similar to
Oh
that,
yeah, go ahead.
where he was whistling when we were cleaning our weapons or doing something. We were all in the classroom doing something silly. I don't remember what it was. The classroom times are the most boring times.
Yes.
We were doing something in the classroom, and he started whistling, and it was a song that I knew, so I started whistling too. And I think there was actually a couple of us that started whistling, but he stopped whistling, and he all of a sudden realized that the whistling was still happening. And then all of a sudden, you just see his face. He's like, and then he looks at me. He's like, not just like, and he just goes exactly what you said. He goes,
Yep. That the kind of power you can't buy, just being a drill sergeant. You just point, and everybody just knows exactly what they got to do. Start pushing, man. So yeah, he was funny, and another really funny thing I told this in the last story is he would get sick of me doing that to him, and like that one time we came out of DFAC and we were all talking, and he walks by and he goes, "Company, half right, face," and we all and everybody, you can just hear everyone, no, and then he walks down the stairs, didn't say anything else, and you hear, "Company, half left, face," and we're back where we were. It's like he didn't smoke us, he was just scaring us. And then again, that time that I was on the CTA and I just said, "Hey, drill sergeant," he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Good morning, drill sergeant," or good afternoon, whatever time it was. And he just goes, "I'm sick of looking at you." He goes, "First platoon, about face." He goes, "Blame Watson for this." And we just facing the opposite direction. Everybody else is facing the drill sergeant, saying we're looking down the road towards the trash cans because I just love talking to him. I just be like, "Hey, drill sergeant, good morning." But yeah, no, that's the way. Like you take control. You doing push-ups ain't that big. It's no thing. So you just have fun doing it. Now, another thing that came in handy from you haven't gone there is the smokings between the changing of phases. Now they didn't happen because of the changing of phases. Like sometimes things happen, but not the same way. Like they happen under different context. But it was about the time for the changing of phases, like where it should be like the change to blue phase or the change to white phase, whichever phase it was, I can't remember. But Chad had told me at one of the drills, like there was a competition and the first 4 guys that made it didn't have to get smoked with the rest of the company. And I was like, I knew this one was coming because Chad told this story. So every time I felt like, because it happened a couple times where they're like, "Grudge the trash can and run back." And there'd be times where I'd just be gutting it. And I'd come back and like, it wasn't that particular smoke session. But the one time it was, like I took off. And I came back and I was like number 3, and I was like, yes. And then they go, and then Drill Sergeant Musgrove comes up and goes, "You stand against the wall, don't say a word to anybody." And I was like, "Oh," and then this company got smoked for like 40 minutes, and I was like, "Man." He goes, "They were like, it pays to be a winner," and I was like, "Yeah, it sure does." But like I said, that was just information I had that no one else did. Like, because people were just jogging it out. Because like, oh, we got to run to the track. I wonder how long this is going to go on for. And I'm sitting there just like, just running as hard as I can. And like I said, that worked out for me pretty well. So yeah, and then you got the DFAC times, which are always fun. Yeah, that first time, like we didn't go to the DFAC for like 3 weeks or a month almost, and when we finally got to go, the chow there was fantastic compared to hot A's or MREs.
Mm-hmm.
And first time we went, that's the shark attack now is the first time you go to the chow hall, because they get to yell and scream at you, and their girls are just crying, like they just can't handle it, and it's because they think they're going to be able to eat in peace. No, they're on you the whole time going through the chow line, and then you only get like 5 minutes to eat, if that. So that was fun watching just all the kids just react to how the drill sergeants were doing stuff. It was just it was neat. It was a fun time. Oh man,
We always joked that we should make a dinner experience like basic training.
yeah,
Get people in, get them
yeah,
out
oh
real
yeah,
quick.
oh yeah, man. It would be over real quick. Now, gosh, what else we got going on? Okay, so during white phase, I got my rifle, and I didn't do too well on the iron sights, but I'd always forget to change the sight from 600 to 300 or whatever, because I guess your rifle can just get unzeroed. And
Well, I said some of the ones that they had there, like they wouldn't stay, or like they had to. They're they're the old they're old well.
they're good
used
rifles, but
yeah.
they're old, and sometimes. But I should have been more diligent and checked to make sure, because my iron sights, I didn't do very well on zeroing my irons, but when I got that red dot on there, man, my rifle was the best rifle in the company, and they all knew it too. Like the drill sergeants, the cadre. So we would go to the range, and finally we're doing the qual range. Like, it's not like the getting zeroed ranges anymore. It's not just shooting targets. It's the targets that pop up, and you got to do the whole lay down, stand up, that kind of shooting. And I do one range day, and I guess I could tell. I'll start with this. So one day I'm out the range, and I meet an enlisted sergeant and the XO. And the enlisted sergeant comes up to me, and he's just looking at me, and he goes, "Why?" And I didn't know who he was. Like, he was never around, but it was Drill Sergeant Haney, and he was around a lot more whenever Chad was there, but he was only there for like the rifle stuff whenever I was there. So he just walks up to me, so I didn't know who this guy was at all, but he's just like, "Why do I know you?" This drill sergeant who I'd never seen before, and I was just like, were you a drill sergeant here last cycle, Sergeant?" He's like, "Yes, I was." And I was like, "Well, you might have saw my twin brother." And he goes, "That would explain it." So that was my introduction to Drill Sergeant Haney, because like he was just staring at me. He was like, "Why do I know you, trainee?" And I was just like, "My twin brother was here last cycle." He's like, "Okay, now I understand." So, and then I meet the XO. This is the first time me seeing the XO too at the rifle range as well. I never saw him before up to this point. And again, it's a very similar conversation. He's like, "You look familiar," and I was like, yes, sir. My twin brother was here last cycle. And he goes, "Oh, okay, cool." And so he's sitting there, but then he would just chat with me like we were bros. Like there was the level of decorum that Solar had. So if there's any officers or cadre watching, like, "Oh, the officer was having like he should have maintained the level." There was there, but like I said, we would be able to talk casually between each other, be like, "Yes, sir," like, "Oh yeah," and he'd be like, "Hey, Watson, your brother, I heard your brother did better than you at the range." And I'm like, no, he definitely didn't. I beat my brother in everything, on all the run times, on all the rifle qual stuff.
Sure.
Oh, no, I did. I know I did. So we're at the the fire one, and the XO is always my spotter. I don't know how I got this lucky, but every time I'm there, and the XO is a great spotter too. He'd be like, "Fast Freddy," it's like 300, 200, and I'm just sitting there like, bam, 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 propping him down. But on my first try, I missed Fast Freddy, and He's like, Watson, you missed the easiest target twice. And I was like, oh, I had tunnel vision, sir. I was just looking down the lanes. He goes, don't let it happen next time. And again, I come back the next day, and it's for the actual qual. And, like, he's my spotter again. And I was just like, heck yes. So he's calling. He's like, fast ready. And I'm just like, bam, bam, bam. And he was like, you know, and the lieutenant's like, he's getting out. He's a captain now. And he's getting in. He's like, yeah. And he's like, you know. So I said, he's like, 300, you know. And I got. And before, oh gosh, I should have mentioned. So before I went out onto the range, I passed the CO. I passed the lieutenant or Captain Scarborough. He's the company commander, and he's like, Watson, if you don't qual, if you don't qual expert, I'm kicking you out of the company. And I'm just like, oh crap, you know, I don't want to go to another company. Like, and he says the worst company to do is like Charlie Company, which is like the one that they live in, like the ghetto over there in.
They live in the trailers.
They live in the trailers. Yeah, it's crap. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to transfer you to Charlie. They're always looking for good recruits down there. And I was like, okay, sir, I will do my best. And and then the XO's the one who's spotting for me. And he's getting so into it, he forgot to, like, count the number. He's like, I think you're one short. And I was like, dang it. You know, I'm one short of expert. I didn't get 30 out of 30. Or is it 32 out of 32?
There's 40 on the range, I said, but like 32 or 33 is expert.
Yeah, so
it's been too long since I've been.
I haven't been to a range in ages. But so anyway, he's like, I was like, what was my number, sir? And he's like, I can't remember, you know. So I was like, oh well. So I was like, I don't think I got it, sir. And he's like, that's okay. Charlie Company's always looking for good trainees. And I was like, crap. So I come back and then I stand in line and they're telling us what our scores are. And finally, one of the other lieutenants walks up to me and goes, good job, expert. And I was just like, no way. So I walk up and I go back to this and I just go, sir. And he's like, what do you want, Watson? I was like, a qualified expert. Just wanted to let you know. And he was like, well, guess you get lucky sometimes. And I was like, oh man, can't even get a win from the CO.
Well, you have another good story with the CO.
Oh yeah, no, but we're not even finished with this one yet. So
okay.
I go and sit down. I put my rifle, stack my rifle in the pile. I'm just sitting there in the bleachers, waiting to go. I mean, then all of a sudden we're all done. Like all the candidates have completed their qual for the day.
Oh, that's right.
And there's
still ammo to shoot.
You know. So they're like all the officers are gonna shoot some ammo and do a qual. And all of a sudden I just hear the XO yell. He goes, Watson, where are you? And I was like, and I'm sitting there like, who is yelling at me? So I get up and I go, you know, I'm trying to figure out who it is, and I see it's the officer, and I'm like, yes, sir. What? Yeah. And he's like, give me your rifle, quick. And I was like, yes, sir. You know, because he knows, like, he knows my rifle's dialed in. You know, he's like, this is good. Like he's gonna crush it. So all of a sudden I just hear Watson, and it's the CO, and then you see the XO. He's like, no. He's like, never mind, I'll find another rifle. Go give your rifle to the CO. And I was like, oh, that sucks. He wanted my rifle to shoot. And like I said, what's funny is they're like, you're sitting there thinking we get to watch all the officers and the stuff shoot. And they're like, candidates, turn around. And we all have to face the wall or the road the other direction while they're shooting. So we can't see how well they do. And of course, you know, they all go, yep, got 40 out of 40, you know, like perfect. We all are experts, you know, and everyone's like, get out of here, you know. And then the drill sergeants go, and then my lead drill sergeant, Sergeant Johnson, he takes my rifle and he comes back and goes, Watson, your rifle is straight bussin', boy. And I was just like, yes, drill sergeant, I know, it's dialed in.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah. So, but yeah, again, so it wasn't the first time. So again, I'm the jokester. I just like to make jokes. And one time we were doing a workout, and we got to do these fun workouts in First Platoon, like where they would you'd pick somebody's name. So I'd be like with Jones, and Jones would take my name. And for every letter, there was like a workout assigned to the letter. So you'd walk up to this board, what letters, like you could do like 25 lunges for, you know, the letter W or whatever. So you would do these workouts assigned to
the person's
letters.
name, yeah.
We're doing that, you know, it's like, and there's like one where you get to do curls. So I'm doing some curls, and I actually have like, you know, like a 25 or 30 pound curl bar, and I'm sitting there curling. And, you know, again, I'm just trying to make people laugh and have fun. So, like, I quoted Anchorman. The CO's over there, too. And I just, like, you know, like, 989, 999, 1,000, you know. And I said it the way down. I was like, I don't know if anybody just heard. I just did 1,000 just now. And I could see the CO, like he turned his head and walked away. I could tell he was laughing. And, like, he walked up to the drill, and I'm just listening. And she's like, what, are you okay, sir? And she was just like, he's like, yeah, Watson got me though. He was like, I was not expecting him to quote Anchorman just then, so he was over there just giggling, chuckling away. So I was able to make him laugh, which, like I said, was fun because like when
Absolutely.
you can make the CO laugh, that's good stuff.
If you're making the drill sergeants and the officers laugh, you're okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, and like I said, I just love making jokes and having a good time, and like I said, people can make you can make your basic training time as fun or as miserable as you want it to be, just depending on your attitude and perspective. So just maintain a positive attitude and outlook, and you're going to do stuff that's going to suck. Just make the most of it. And like I said, typically the harder things are, the more memorable they'll be. That's what the CO says. That's what Captain Scarborough says. He's like, the harder and worse things are, the more memorable they'll be, and the more you will cherish the memory
It's not
at the end of
wrong.
the day.
That's everything that I remember from all my training that I've ever been through. Is the harder it was, the more memorable it was.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that's easy, you don't remember.
You're
It's
just like,
literally your brain flushes it.
yeah, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
So that was what it was like, and it was fun being around them and being around there. So I guess I only got really two other really good ones to kind of chat about. And a reason, like I said, again, Chad and I, we are 09 Sierra, so we've only ever been in a training environment. We've never been in an active duty environment. So all we have is training and being treated like trainees and crap, essentially, throughout most of our military career. So another really good story I would have to say is when we went out to the Forge. And the Forge is the final
Field excursion.
field excursion.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two good ones about the Forge, and one of them is when we're done with the Forge, like we're walking and we get like 2 hours of sleep that night, So we leave the training range and we walk to bed down for the night. It's pitch black by the time we get to a place where we bed down, and it's probably almost like 11. It's like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and then we have to wake up at like 3 so we can get to the Hilton Field at 4.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just tired. Everybody's like, you conk out pretty quick, but it was hot out that night, and it was, so it was going to sleep for me was kind of tough because we just got done walking, and you get in your sleeping bag and trying to cool down, but the sleeping bag's hot too, and so I was like unzipped, like just out in the open trying to sleep, and so again, minimal sleep. That's the most important part of this thing. You're out in the field for 3 days, almost 4 days, and you get very minimal sleep. And we're walking to Hilton Field, and we have to ruck to Hilton Field. And when you get there, it's a dangerous track too. Like, I mean, it's dark and mushy and muddy, and I nearly rolled my ankle like 5 times just because like the terrain is so rough out there. Those fire breaks you're walking through. So we get to Hilton Field, and we're there for the graduation there. The entire battalion is there, and as we're going through and finishing or doing the ceremony, they have in the ceremony they have like all these soldiers. They have all the uniforms throughout the years in the U.S. military. So it's like you have the Revolutionary War. So it's like the blue coat with the the wig and
The powdered wig.
the powdered
and all
wig
that.
and the
Yep.
little cool cap they wore, and then you get like the the second Revolution where it's very similar, and then you get the Civil War uniform. But what was so funny is the first guy they roll out is like he looks like the guy in the powder wig. It might as well just be George Washington. They march out there on stage. So, like I said, but they have World War II soldiers. They have Vietnam War dress soldiers. They have Gulf conflict war, so Iraq, Afghanistan, and then even the modern military uniform. But the first guy that rolls out is the Revolutionary War soldier, and I'm standing next to my buddy, and his name is Danny Avitia, and he is he's tired too. We're all tired. Like you're standing at attention during the ceremony, trying not to and there are people just plopping down left and right because they're so tired. Like they lock their legs out, they lose blood flow, and they just pass out right next to you. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to just stay awake. So I know VT is struggling to stay awake too because your head's just nodding. You're standing up, but you're just. But Danny's standing next to me, and he's like, "Yo." He's like, he just turns to me. He's kind of nudges me, even though we're out of attention. He's like, "Hey, yo, am I tripping right now, or is that Black George Washington on stage?" It's just like I'm biting. I nearly bit my tongue off because like you don't want to laugh out loud during the ceremony, but I'm like, shut up, Danny! Like you're about to make me piss my pants laughing because we're trying like it's like the super serious ceremony. But yeah, he's like, yo, is that Black George Washington up there, man? And I was just like, and when you're tired, everything is absolutely. But looking back at it, it's hilarious anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just that was the funniest thing that he said. I still remember it so vividly this day, just being that tired, but it was just that funny. And the other real memorable thing that happened out in the forge was, well, I guess at Bravo, we got to have our phones every Sunday, which was nice. Chad, you didn't get that luxury. We got the
Not every Sunday. We got it a lot of Sundays, but like we always lost our phone privileges. Usually, your platoon, first platoon, always did
yeah.
something to lose us our phone privileges.
Yeah, we were a good platoon that cycle, other than the time we got evicted because somebody had to smuggle an extra cell phone into the bay. Yeah, that was rough.
I bet.
But but so we got to talk to our phone. So right before we left for the forge, which was like I said again, the final 3-day excursion out in the field where basically you're done. And I'm talking. I get an hour, so I get to talk to my mom and dad. I get to talk to Chad. I get to talk to my girlfriend. I get to talk to a lot of people. I call a couple of my friends, and I call one of my buddies who was in the 82nd. Case, you guys actually, if you've seen Case's video, you've heard this story before. But I call him, and he's like, "Hey, man," and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Everything going good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just ready to be done with this crap, ready to go get my beret and be done with this." And he was like, "Yeah, I hear you, man." And I was like, "Hey, have you got any mail from me?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, be on the lookout for it." And I was like, "All right." And then we go to the forge, and I don't think anything about it. So last day of the forge, we wake up before we step off to go to do the final ruck march and then to the firing range. I'm sitting on my bag. It's sun's coming up. It's early hours in the morning. So we're just got done having chow or about to have chow. But we're just sitting on our ruck packs in formation or in, straight line formation.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just hear, Watson! And they don't sound happy, but, I'm just like, I hope they're talking about the Watson in 4th Platoon. And it gets closer and louder, and, it's like, Watson! I was like, oh, crap, it's me. So, so I go over, and I just jog, and they go, come alone! Come by yourself, and don't say anything to anybody else. And I was like, what's going on? And, of course, my whole platoon is like, what'd you do? And I'm like, guys, I've been here with you the whole time. What could I have done? So I jog up, and the entire drill sergeant cadre, they're all hanging out in a big circle together, and they're all looking at their phones. And then I walk in, and, it's like, I don't want to enter this circle. I don't know what's going on, what I'm in trouble for. And I walk up, and one of them pulls out their phone and goes, Watson, what is this? And it's a letter, and it says, Porn Addicts Recovery Society of America. Together we can beat it. And together we seek release. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was like, this is the letter that Case was talking about. So I'm like, no, this is a prank. This is a prank letter. My buddy sent this to me from the 82nd. He's just being a jerk. And Drill Sergeant Musgrove was in the 82nd, and he was like, yeah, that sounds like something somebody from the 80 Deuce would do. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, But they're like, we'll handle this when we get back to the CTA or back to the Bravo. And I was like, cool. And I go jogging back to my platoon, and everybody's like, what happened? I was like, I can't say, I'm not supposed to say, so, but I was like, it's not a big deal, effectively, is what I confirmed them with. But, again, like, we're still 24 hours away from graduation ceremony at this point. Like I just told you, we went to the beret ceremony. I told that story about a Danny Avidia. And so we go, and we have a full day of rucking, shooting, and then, like, 2 hours of sleep. So I have forgotten about all of this, because just remember that funny story I told you about Avitia. Is that Black George Washington up there? Like, all that's happened. We're having a good time. We got our berets put on. We are officially, beret hatted soldiers now, so we're feeling cool. And we get back to the CTA. We get to have breakfast at the DFAC. Awesome. You feeling good after that. And then you go back to CTA. It's like, we're gonna have mail call. And then we get to, and it's once they go, we're having mail call, that I'm like, oh crap, mail call. I forgot about this. So as mail call is happening, I see that they have a giant, like I don't know what you call it, like a laundry box of mail with like
Mm-hmm.
foldable tops, and they pull them all out, and I'm like, oh, my mail's not here. Good stuff. They're not going to give it to me because, like I said, there are certain things that are contraband, like any pornographic materials, any anything like that, like is considered contraband. Like you can't have nudie pictures, you can't have things like that. So assuming that that's what they thought was in there, they're not realizing it's a prank. They're like, oh gosh, this guy has problems. We can't like
Mm-hmm.
openly, but and I was like, okay, cool. So they're not going to give it to me. I'm like, sweet. But then another drill sergeant comes out with a separate hamper, and it's like see through, and I can see the envelope in there. I was like, ah, crap, there it is, and so drill sergeant V, she gets up there on the drill sergeant stand, and like, she's like, Trainee Watson, and I was like, I jog up, and I'm like, yes, drill sergeant, and she's like, come up here. And if you know anything about the drill sergeant stand, you're not supposed to touch it. Like people who accidentally bump into it get yelled at. People who put their arm on it to rest get yelled at. Like it's a sacred place for the drill sergeants. Trainees are not allowed. But she's like, "Come up here," and I'm like, "Oh, whoa, drill sergeant, I can't do that." And she's like, "Get your butt up here right now." And I'm like, "Oh God." So I get up there, and she hands me this envelope and she's like, "Read it," and I was just like, read what? She's like, quit being smart. Read your letter to the company, or read, and I can't even open it. I'm just like, I'm reading the top, and it just says, "This is my letter from the Porn Addicts Recovery Society of America," I'm laughing my butt off while I'm trying to read this because it's just so ridiculous. And I'm like we can beat it
Together we
together. We
seek
seek
release.
release. And I'm sitting there
Mm-hmm.
reading this stuff, just like uncontrollably laughing. So people probably even know what I'm saying, but they just know I'm laughing at this. And they know they said something about porn. So, of course, after that they break formation. You guys can go to your bays now, and like everybody just darts up to me and goes, "What do you have? What do you have? Let me see it." And like so, I show them, and then I open the card, and there's a prank card on the inside that says, "Ha ha, I gotcha." So
Mm-hmm.
I show everybody. They're like, "Oh, cool!" And then I show the drill sergeant, saying, "I told you it was a prank. I'm not a pervert." So so that was that, but she made me do like 50 to 100 burpees. I can't remember the exact number, but man, yeah, she dropped me. It was like, yeah, do like 50 burpees. And I was like, shoot. So like I said, again, mail call. You got to do your punishment for your mail. If you get one letter, 20 push-ups. Or it's the drill sergeant's discretion too. They can be like,
Mm-hmm.
you do 20 burpees or you do 20 push-ups. They can make sprint to the traffic cone and back,
Yep.
whatever. They can make you do whatever.
Yep. Said we had a kid in our company. That's the one I forgot. He got like 10 letters every day, and he made him do so much stuff. He said he would be like, to the point, he's like, I can't do it anymore. I said, I think he almost thought about quitting basic training just solely
Because
because
of
of how much
mail.
mail he got, because of how
Yeah.
much punishment he had to do.
Yeah, they should have just wrote
That's
his family. Stop writing me.
yeah. Oh, y'all like your kid a little too much because I saw his parents at the thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I've never seen someone do so many push-ups for mail before in my entire life.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there with you. But yeah, so that was a very fun, and so kudos to Case. That was a fun, memorable part, and everybody had a good time at my expense. But it was fun. It was a good experience.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, and then graduation, and then boom, off to the pre OCS
Pre-OCS.
environment. Yeah, and
So tell us about that. Tell us more about the pre-OCS. I know you said it helped you quite a bit because you didn't have a lot of land nav because you always had details.
yeah, so they do teach you land nav, and I'm sure they teach it very well. I just wasn't around for it. So I had whenever they were doing land nav, it was during the weapons stuff, or it was during rifle qualifications, and I was always on ammo detail. Like I volunteered for like 2 weeks of it, and I didn't really volunteer. Like people would be like, oh, I'm on profile, so they'd have to go to the medical facility. So they'd be like, we need one more, and I'm always like the first person people see at the front when they walk in, and they go, Watson, you just go. So like that's the other thing. That's why it's not a good thing to like have a well known name, because if they know your name, they'll call you because like they know you're trustworthy, reliable, or they just you're the only name they can think of.
Yep.
So that's who I was. Like they'd be like, hey Watson, you just go do it because we know your name, and I could get it done too. So that's what I do. I'd be like, I got thrown into like being the server detail at the DFAC all the time because like we're missing somebody. He's like, Watson, just go. And I just like got the sprint and go change clothes and run back and get to do the serving stuff. And but yeah. So wait, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. What were we?
Oh, we're talking about land nav. Your
Oh,
land
okay,
nav
yeah. So I'd always be doing
details.
ammo detail during land nav. So I would come back at the tail end of land nav and I'd be like, "Hey guys, what'd they teach you?" And I have had like I looked up YouTube videos of how to land nav before I went to basic, but again, once you're in that environment, you get sleepy and tired. All of your cognitive function kind of goes out the window. So I only had a little bit of YouTube experience of land nav, and that's about it. And for the most part, that served me pretty well. Like whenever we did land nav in a group, I learned it pretty well. In OCS, I was the only one who ever found a point in my group. But like I said, I was like, I trust you guys know what you're doing. And they're like, yeah. And then it turned out, yeah, no, I just said yeah because I just wanted to hide under the radar. And I was like, oh my gosh. So since I was gone, I didn't get a whole lot of land nav experience from like seasoned soldiers. So I came back into the pre-OCS environment and was learning land nav on paper and taking those just written land navic tests, and then finally we got to go out in the field and do practical out at Fort Gruber. And one, it was a lot of fun, but it was a big learning curve too. And like for the most part, Sergeant Hoosier would be out there and be like, "Oh, you'll do fine. Just I'll start you off. I'll point you in the right direction." Like, okay, cool. And I did well. Like I did really well on and some of those points, they weren't self-correcting, but when I was out in the field, I actually found a point. And I was like, this can't be it because it doesn't look like any of the other points. But I went and looked in the back of it, and it gave the grid coordinate on this old point that was like run down and like a piece of junk. And I said, oh, I'm just going to grid off this. And like, okay, I need to go 50 meters, northeast.
Yep.
And I did. And I found the point. I'm like, cool. I self-corrected off of an old point, which is pretty cool. So the knowledge was there. I just needed to actually apply it by myself in a practical environment. And that was fun. But yeah, pre-OCS... They teach you a whole lot about
basic doesn't really help you that much because if you remember, I don't know if it was different when you got there, but when we got there, one person had the compass.
Yeah.
There's a group of 3, and only one person has the compass, and then the other 2 are basically being paceman at that point.
Yeah.
So and I never had the compass, like I said, but I was the one that plotted all the points. Actually, I plotted them all, but then I had the other kids that had never done it before do it, and then I would check it to make sure. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And land nav is fun. Like being outside, doing that stuff outside, like I said, it's more, it just feels better. Like it feels like a more natural state of being to the human condition. So it's enjoyable. It's fun. And yeah, learning how to do that out in the field by myself was definitely a confidence booster, which I definitely needed before we went to phase 1 because I was freaking out about land nav when I went out there. And like I said, Sergeant Hoosier could tell too. He was like, you'll do fine. I was like, cool. So he taught me quite a bit, the courses in the pre-OCS, because the pre-OCS class, like they're not going to teach you how to do the majority of stuff. They're just going to try to make sure you have enough information to make it through phase 1, and the most important thing you do in phase 1 is land nav.
Yep, that's true.
So that's what they do. I mean, phase 1
land
in
nav.
Oklahoma, like it's death by land nav. If you're in there for any experienced period of time, it's land nav, land nav, land nav, land nav.
But land nav, to be fair,
is the
land
candidate
nav
killer.
is the candidate killer. I said we lost more people at phase 1 to the land nav test than we did the 6 mile.
So we had about 90 candidates at phase 1, and
no, we had I think over about 100.
It was close, but anyway, we ended up with just 70 graduating. So I mean, it is how most people get disqualified. So with that being said, the pre-OCS environment does a good job of prepping you for phase 1. Now, they do a good job of prepping you for everything else, not particularly, but they don't need to because
you're focused on the very next goal.
Yeah, your goal is what's in front of you, like pass land nav, get through that. Now, the only funny story I really have from phase 1 is after
phase 1 or land nav,
pre-OCS. Pre-OCS before phase 1, but yeah, in the pre-OCS environment, we were doing the night land nav after we had done like the day land nav, and I got done and I was sitting on the back of the bus and I was bored and I was like, man, I'm hungry, and I cracked a joke. I said I could eat the rear end of a possum, but I didn't say that, I said a bad word, but said I could eat the blank end of a possum, and Sergeant Hoosier is like, he's a really funny dude. They're really funny NCO. He was just like, who said that? And I was just like, oh man. But little to my knowledge, like it was cold because it was like it's April, but it's like a cold day in April, and it was rainy and stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
put my beanie on out there, and then I didn't want to like lose my cap, my PC cap in the bus, so I put it on top of my beanie, but I put it on backwards because I was just chilling, trying to go fall asleep in the back of the bus because I had finished my stuff. And he called. He goes, "Who said that?" And I was like, "It was me, drill sergeant." I was like, "It was me, sergeant." And he was like, "Come up here." And I was like, "Okay." So I get up and walk up there, but I still have my hat, my beanie, and my cap on. He was like, "You really gonna come up here and address an NCO like that?" And I don't even realize that I have this on my head. I was like, "Oh, my bad, sergeant." So that was just hilarious. Like, cause he didn't smoke. Like, and the pre-OCS environment was the most chill environment I've been in the military. Like, they treat you like an adult. You can have your phone with you, and they'll yell at you if you do something wrong. But I mean, it's pretty relaxed. So, but yeah, that was fun. Being in that, and like I said, just not getting smoked by the sergeants for silly stuff. So, pre-OCS environment was fun, and they taught me quite a bit. Now, pushing on to phase one, man. Phase one, and I think my buddy Case, who was in the 82nd, like I said, he has a bunch of videos on here as well if you want to check out the podcast. But he said it the best. He goes, every schoolhouse you go to is going to be a kick in the teeth. Like, if you think you're gonna go there and like, oh, this is going to be all fun and games, you are wrong. You're going to go there, it's going to be a kick in the teeth, and you're going to learn, and you're going to run, and you're going to get yelled at, but you can do it. And he's correct. That is a really fair assessment. That's how phase one was. And even all the cadre before we went to phase one, like Captain Stosher, like you and me were getting ready to go, and he was all the certain cadre members like, oh, how do you think so and so is going to do? And he's like, oh, the twins, they'll do fine. And they're like, why? Why do you think the twins? He goes, they don't know any better. Like, they've never been to a unit. They don't know what it's like to not be treated like crap,
Mm-hmm.
in the military yet. And I was just like, oh, so. And he was correct. Like,
He's
it,
not
it was
wrong.
like being at basic training again, but maybe a little more intense. And again, you said it in yours. OCS phase one is everything I thought basic training would be. I mean,
It's like all the stuff you see in the movies that you
yes.
think it's going to be like. That's what phase one really is for
Mm-hmm.
OCS.
Yeah. I mean, so you start off, and when you get there, you're just walking around carrying your ruck pack and your duffel, and you're running from place to place, getting equipment and draw, and you're getting your rifle and crap like that. And you get assigned to your base, and then once you get assigned to your base, they go, never mind, we're going to assign it by squads. And you're just like, crap, I just got comfy. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're just moving around constantly, and they're just constantly in your face. I mean, you think drill sergeants are mean, man. Black hat captains are mean, and so are black hat sergeants. They are mean too. They just hammer you the whole time. You can't do anything right when you're there, and it's hot. It was hot in Kansas when we were there. So we from basic training to for the 3 months we were there, from January to March, I lost like 35, 40 pounds. That's over 2 months. That's reasonable. But in OCS phase one, I mean, I dropped like 15 pounds in 2 weeks. Like, could you imagine what I would look like if we had to do that for another 2 weeks? Like, that'd be like 30 pounds in 4 weeks, and then you're nothing but a string bean by the end of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, but we were just running up. Like, Ivy talked about it in his, like, the worst thing you did was the run to chow every morning, afternoon, and evening. And then thank goodness you got to walk back, because they didn't want you hurling your food when they had you sprinting to the next place. But yeah, you're just trying to stay awake. You're too scared to make a move. You're too scared to, do anything really, because you're just living under the scrutiny of these people, and nothing you do is correct. But I will say, looking back on it, it was fun. And even when I was there, I had fun. Like, I'll give an example. One time, I know we're kind of getting near the close, so I'm excited, just like, oh my gosh, like, we can see cadre from Oklahoma have come back to come pick us up. And we're like, yeah, we're getting ready to go home. We're so close. But
Granted, there's still probably like 2 or 3 days.
yeah, yeah. But we're running out, and I just remember like the TACs are calling us out for attack break, and I'm walking down the hall, and I can hear them yelling down there at the exit of the door, screaming at us coming in. I'm just like, I don't care at this point. I'm just happy to be there. I'm just happy to be doing something else different besides falling asleep in class. And I got this big smile on my face as I'm running out the door, and one of the black hats, one of my platoon, is like going, Watson, wipe that smile off your face. It's just like I can't help it. I'm just so happy. I'm just having so much fun. Because it was fun. Like, despite the fact you're going out there and you're getting smoked in 100-degree weather and stuff, it is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are really like, whenever they talk to you like a normal person, you can get a sense for these people, who they are, and that they actually care, and they're real people, and like you evaluate them as they evaluate you. And another really fun thing you got to do is, like, so I was appointed to leadership. I was appointed to the XO position, second group. So the first group, man, and you feel bad for the first group because it is a trial by fire. It's like when you're second group, like, you're just sitting there trying to take it in, like, what does the CO do? But then you're so worried, like, oh, I hope I don't become the first sergeant, because the first sergeant, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what he's doing. Like, hopefully you just get appointed to, like, squad leader, or just like a
You're like squad leader, squad
yeah,
leader,
squad leader, squad leader, squad leader. But no, so I was the second group to get appointed to a position, and I was the XO, and I was like, oh man, I have no clue what the XO does. I just know that I like the XO from my basic training company. That's about it. And then, so I'm looking through the SOP, reading it. I'm like, what are my jobs, responsibilities? I got to make a PL binder, gotta, make sure that I keep, I'm second command if the CO goes anywhere. I'm in charge of the water detail. I have to keep a numbered list of all the rifles and an active roster of all the candidates. So I go in, I'm like, PLs, give me your active rosters. I need to know everybody here, and I need you to write down and hand me a piece of paper that has a list of the name of the person and their rifle, the rifle serial number, all that jazz. So I get all that information, but I also have to read the mess, like the chow hall roster. And, you're supposed to do recon and get the meal of the day, which you can, but that's boring. You don't want to do that. So what I did is I just make stuff up. Like, they actually said you actually had to have one thing on there that was correct, and then for the meal and the drink. So I'm like, okay, too easy. I can do that. So you just make stuff up as you go. So, like, for the breakfast time, I'd be like, the time for the reading of the mess, and everybody had to repeat what I said, so they would repeat, and I'd be like, so at this time, we will be having green eggs and spam, and the black hats will forgo their chow. And I can't remember all the ones I said specifically, but I had fun writing these little things out. It was like the only real joy I took out of it. And the one I remember the most was I made everybody sing Rough Riders. So what ended up happening was, so it's like I read the chow or whatever my goofy chow thing was, and I go, and then you have to say what the black hats will be having or what the cadre will be having. So I was like, and the black hats will forgo chow too. And I was like, stop, and then everyone was like, stop, and then I was like, drop, and then I was like, drop, and then I was like, shut them down, open up shop, and then everyone else just sang the rest of the chorus. Says, oh no, that's how Rough Riders roll. So that was fun. Like, doing that was fun, and you could see all the black hats, and all the cadre, they were like having a great time with that because they were laughing and having a good time. So
I will say that's about the first time like our company actually did something together as a team, because everybody started singing that together. Said, stop, drop, shut them down, open up, shut. I mean, everybody did it together. So at least if they knew what it was anyway. But from where I was, which I was in the middle of the formation, because I was second platoon.
You were standing
PL.
right in front of me.
Yep, I was second platoon PL. Everybody was singing that from what I could hear, from my left to my right to behind me. So it sounded like everybody.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good time, and I liked doing that. But then right after that, so like I was like, this is my last agenda, my last thing, because you have to be your position for 2 days, and they kick you out. And then so I was like, damn, I did it. It's like I felt good about everything I did. And then I walked away and I left early, so I messed up DNC. So I didn't wait to be relieved by the position behind me. So they stopped me and they go, and then they drop the whole company, and they go, when leaders fail, soldiers. So they're making them do push-ups while I have to sit there and watch. And I'm just like, I'm such a piece of crap right now, because you feel so bad, because that's what they do when you're in leadership. They punish the company, not you, and you're just like, you feel so bad. But the thing is, when you're the one doing push-ups, you're like, I'm just glad I'm not him, And then when you're the one doing push-ups, when you're the one up there, you're like, you're like, you feel so bad about it, but they're
Mhm.
like the people who are pushing are like, I don't care. I'm just glad I'm not in that
Yeah, I'm
leadership
just
position
glad that
right
was
now.
me because they're all thinking the same thing. You say, I would have done that exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the way it is in phase one. You can do no right, but you have to find your things that you take joy in. You have to find your moments. Like I said, for me, it was that take control of the things you can take control of, and make that chow hall procedure yours,
Yep.
and
So
make it fun.
yeah, so moving on to phase two, which I know we don't have a lot to talk about in phase two because we're kind of still in it, because we're kind of extending our timeline here. But you got any advice or any stories from phase two, and then we can move on to the advice for the Army or OCS or just dad advice in general.
Yeah, I again, phase two is tough because it's like as they say in our programs, like this is a self-taught course, so you have to learn yourself and you have to know the terms, and even then, like even if you don't, like you go and you show up on the day, and because I'm learning as I go. And I remember in the pre-OCS program, they're talking about things like op boards and like pace plans, and they're talking about uh, Met TC, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I don't even know what you're talking about. And so you're just sitting there. I'm just at a loss for words. I'm like, I this is why I need to be in OCS, because like I'm just listening to these people talk, and I'm like, I don't.
You're speaking a
It's
different
it's
language.
like yeah, from Finding Nemo, it's like you're really cute, but I don't know what you're saying, So that they're just words. They're just spitting out words at me. And I'm like, I don't know what these words mean. I just got out of the basic training environment. So uh, but yeah, you learn quick though. I mean, like it's like you're picking up a different language. You're speaking up it's a different dialect of communication, military jargon and military. It's like radio conversation and military lingo. It's a different dialect, and you use it to someone who's never heard it before. It's like, oh, you met TC, and you're like, oh, well, okay, well now I know what it is, but 2 months ago I didn't.
Hmm.
So just learn, and don't be afraid to open up a book or pull up your army pubs and look through that. Again, that's what I mean. They punish us for that. They're like on, because that's what our cadre will do here. Like, it's like, you gonna check me? Are you gonna see if what I'm saying is true or not? And that's what they want. It's like if you're a PL and you walk in and somebody goes, oh yeah, this is the way we're doing it, and it's like, are you sure about that? It's like, according to doctrine, this is how you're supposed to do it. And it's like, now sure, each individual unit might have an SOP for how they work something, which is totally fine and understandable, but they have to give you a logical reason for it, because you don't want to just be, especially as a new platoon leader, taken on for a ride. It's like, this is the way. It's like you show up and like, this is the way they said they were doing it. And you're like, you have to take responsibility for that if that's the case, and if something goes wrong. So that's the way it is. This is a self-taught course where you have to learn and take responsibility for your actions and make sure everything operates smoothly. Like the drill weekends are totally on you,
Hmm.
and it's good to know, because it's as smooth as you want to make it. And you can't, let's say it again, the most important thing that I've learned is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like there'll be people in your class that might let you down, but you have to mitigate that risk, because you'll have it's like in basic training we had dirt bags and bums, in the platoon. It's like there's nothing you can do about it. And there's definitely more motivated people here in the OCS environment. Like the people who are officers want to be officers and they want to be here. Now, it doesn't mean everyone's going to do a great job, but that level of motivation makes it a little better for you in the long run. But you're going to have to learn how to deal with those people and learn how to deal with people that either don't know what's going on or don't care what's going on, but you're going to have to function and get them to work as a cohesive group as a PL. So I'm kind of just rambling at this point now, but
Hmm.
phase two, it's its own monster. And I was watching. We should definitely link Sergeant Chamberlain's stuff in here too, because he's got some great info in there too. It's like, focus on your
Absolutely.
physical fitness. Like the first 3 months, we were just focusing totally on making sure that we knew we were filling out the memos correctly, that we were writing stuff correctly, that we had the certain things filled out properly. We focused on the academic portion of it a little too much, and we let our fitness kind of suffer for that. But now we're kind of in that zone where we have a good idea of what we're doing in this environment now, and now we're focusing more on fitness. So phase two, focus on your fitness, don't lose shape, and get into that that training regiment so you can stay fit for the upcoming 12-mile, 4-mile runs, and then so you can survive phase 3 because you'll be rucking your pack out in the field for 2
And then
weeks.
the 4 mile run, of course,
Yeah,
which that's can be a killer too.
it can be. So it's fun. Stay positive is the only thing I could say. Take control. Make it as fun as you possibly can. Maintain a positive outlook because life's gonna throw stuff at you. You know this being in the Army, and like stuff's gonna happen that you can't control. Make a positive outlook. Take a positive outlook on life. Maintain a positive emotional state, and control what you can. Don't worry about what you can't, and try to make it as fun as possible for not only yourself but for the people around you. And that's what I would say.
It's good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, that kind of concludes what we had. Like I said, thanks for sharing your story, and that's about all we have here with the Grand Old Cast. We had a grand old time.
That's right.
All right.
Peace out, everybody. God bless you.